What is the main emotion that you experience at the end of each day, after the kids are finally asleep and your head hits your pillow? If you said guilt, you are not alone. In a survey of 2,000 American parents a few years back, parents reported an average of 23 pangs of guilt per week. That's more than 3 pangs per day. Guilt is also one of the #1 emotions that brings parents I work with to look for support. Because the thing about guilt is, it isn't just a passing cloud of an emotion, it's a punch in the guts emotion. When we experience guilt, there are measurable physiological changes that take place. It hurts. One study showed that people would quite happily subject themselves to painful electric shocks to alleviate the feeling. It's also exhausting. When you're experiencing guilt, your perception of your body weight and the effort it takes to do things increases. So if you're feeling heavier with all this guilt, you're not imagining it. Guilt also impacts how easily you're able to interact with people you feel guilty in relation to. Turns out it's quite hard to make eye contact with a person you perceive you've wronged. This can have major impact on our ability to connect deeply with our children, which, as we know, is quite important. So in this video, I'm going to share with you a way to understand your guilt that can not only relieve you of this heavy burden, but can actually transform your guilt into something that can make your life as a parent more joyful and more fulfilling. But first, I want to look at how the current way we popularly understand guilt is actually incredibly damaging for parents. The way we typically understand guilt is as an indication of ethical wrongdoing. We think of guilt as our conscience alerting us to something that we've done that's wrong, objectively. It's the angel on our shoulder alerting us that we need to course correct and act differently next time. But here's the problem, especially for parents. Many of the things that we feel guilty about relate to overwhelming, bigger than us social problems. We're trying our best to raise our children in a world that doesn't really support us. A society with frayed social safety nets, with economic pressure, with disruptive technology. We're feeling guilty about a whole lot of things we can't easily change. So, for example, you might have yelled when your child was slow to get in the car this morning, and you might feel guilty about that because you didn't really want to shout. You wanted a peaceful morning. You wanted to be calm and gentle with your child. But to think of the situation as a simple case of ethical wrongdoing doesn't factor in the whole story of what impacted your action in that moment. There's another perspective. You might be really stressed at the moment. Maybe you haven't slept well in weeks. You might be scared that your child will be in trouble at school again, and be very aware that you're legally obliged to get them there every day. You might also have pressure from the impact on your own work, fear of being fired from your job or not being able to pay the rent if you're late again. You might be doing all of this on your own and it's really overwhelming. The thing is, parenting guilt isn't a simple story of wrongdoing, it's a complicated story, involving a lot of social and historical factors that make modern parenting incredibly challenging. We don't often talk about this bigger picture even though it's impacting all of us. And if this makes any sense to you, I would love for you to put in the comments some of the bigger picture factors that are impacting how hard it is for you to parent, so that we can share this a little bit. So if our guilt isn't telling us we've done anything wrong, then what is it telling us? A very different way to understand guilt is that it doesn't represent wrongdoing so much as an awareness of some important values that are being missed. This is how Marshall Rosenberg, father of nonviolent communication and renowned giraffe puppeteer, explored it. We can think of guilt as representing conflicting voices inside us, an inner debate about how to make sure our choices incorporate all of the values and needs that are so important for us, that we care so much about. When we feel guilty, it's because the choice we made didn't incorporate something that we hold incredibly dear. At the moment that we made the choice or took the action, we didn't perhaps know how to incorporate both sets of these values, so we may have downplayed one for the other. In the case of parenting, in this very difficult modern world, it might be that some of the life circumstances we have are such that it's really difficult to incorporate some of the values that we care most about for ourselves and our children. This different way of understanding guilt gives us an alternative way we can interact with it. Instead of imagining that our guilt means we've done something wrong, we can listen to it and try to understand our guilt as a form of wisdom, whispers from a wise and ancient part of our nature showing us what's missing from our lives and our children's. How do we listen to our guilt? Not the blaming, critical voices that we usually hear, but the deeper meaning beyond our guilt. So let's do this together. Grab a piece of paper and at the top, write down something you're feeling guilty about in relation to your child. Try to narrow it down to one specific moment and try to observe what you were actually doing in that moment. What would a camera have seen? Not what is your interpretation. So instead of I'm always grumpy with my children, I can write I raised my voice and said go to bed. Divide your bit of paper in half, and on one side we're going to listen to the voice that's telling us that you did something wrong, and on the other we're going to listen to the voice that's trying to defend you, that's saying there's another perspective. And it's usually helpful to start with the voice that's trying to tell you you did something wrong. Well, you did. Sorry? Well, you did. You did something wrong. You shouted at your children. You were a horrible mother. Okay, you have a lot to feel guilty about. Tell me, I'd like to hear. You are distracted at the moment. You're working too hard, you're always tired, you're grumpy with everyone. Okay, so you noticed I was distracted? Yeah, that's one way to put it. So I was a bit grumpy. When you go to put the kids to bed, you're as grumpy as fuck. Okay, there's no need for that kind of language. And it's all a little bit hypocritical if you ask me. Bit hypocritical? Yeah. You say that you want presence and connection with the kids, and then you're too bloomin' tired to do it. Okay, thanks for your perspective. So what you can do is just write down these thoughts, all of these judgmental, critical ways of thinking. So I could write, I'm distracted, I'm working too hard, I'm tired, I'm grumpy. As if. So if we just left it there with these judgments, we'd be right back in the heavy rock carrying full burden of guilt situation. But we're not going to leave it there. What we're going to do is try to understand what the deeper values or needs these judgments are actually representing. And what we want to do is just guess, what is it that this voice of guilt is really trying to say to us? So is it that you really want me to be present with the kids? Yeah, I want you to be present. I want you to connect. And actually it would be really nice if you could just enjoy this time. So you'd like some joy for me. Exactly. And it would be really nice if our life could actually prioritize the things that matter to us. Right, so you want my choices to really reflect what matters most to us. Exactly. Any needs that connect with you, any that give you a sense of, yeah, that's it. You can write them down as well. If you want to try this at home and you're a bit unfamiliar with needs and values language, you can download this feelings and needs chart from the description below. And once you start to have a sense that you understand where this voice of judgment and guilt is coming from, you can attempt to hear the other voice. This is the part of you that might have made the choice or taken the action in the first place. It might be the voice that's defending you quietly in the background. So in this case, I really want to hear from the part of me that was feeling pretty tired and grumpy last night, and I want to understand what was going on. So, is there anything you'd like to tell me? Yeah, well, that all sounds nice and all, but I was exhausted. It's not like I set out to go shout at the kids or anything. I was just really overwhelmed in that moment. I'd had such a full-on day. Sounds like you were pretty tired and overwhelmed. Yeah, it's a lot of responsibility working and being a parent. I try my best. It's not like there's a whole village out there helping. Is it that you'd really like to be seen for your intentions, that you were really trying, and maybe you'd like some support? You'd like rest and you'd like time to care for yourself. Exactly. Once you have a sense that you're understanding the needs on this side as well, what you might notice is that you actually really care for both. For instance, I noticed that I actually really want to care for my health and well-being and have some support. What the And I also really want to be present with my children. I want to prioritize my life in a way that really cares for the things that matter most to me. Yeah, but then, and I want to do that in a way that gives me enough rest. And that's the truth about guilt. These different parts of us are each just caring for a different piece of the puzzle, but every piece is important. Every piece has wisdom. It's just that in any given moment, you might not know how to meet all of those needs. And sometimes as parents, it can actually be really hard to care for all of these different values and needs that matter to us. But once you've taken the time to actually hear what's important on each side, some amazing things can happen. First, sometimes you might come up with some incredible new ideas that you hadn't thought of before about how you can actually care for both sets of values. Okay, so what if we just took 10 minutes to chill out and relax before going to put the kids to bed? I think that could be really good, actually. not sure why we haven't done that. And second, sometimes you might just have a chance to grieve that the world you're raising your children in is quite hard sometimes. There may be a gap between the world you really long for, the values you long for, and what you're able to achieve right now in this particular context. And here's the important thing to hold in mind. We don't have to know how to fix something in order to acknowledge that it matters. As parents, we're the canaries in the mine, raising kids in a world that very often isn't meeting their needs or ours. If we just internalise this as personal failings, we're missing the deeper truth that our guilt is signalling what matters most to us, whether or not we know how to achieve it right now. But in order to really work through parenting guilt, there's another important part to address. How do we care for our child's pain in the face of these really difficult decisions? When we have made a choice that impacts our child, whether we intended to or not, how can we care for the hurt and rebuild our relationship? If you want to know exactly how to do that, you can watch this video next.